Good morning, guys. It's Michael, teacher turned trucker. This morning we're going to deal briefly with the text of John chapter 19, verses 16 to 22. The text, for the most part, is pretty straightforward, so it's not going to require a lot of deep digging. But I do think that there are some things that we can take away from it. So let's go ahead and read through it. It starts in 16. Then Pilate handed him over to them to be crucified. So they took Jesus. And carrying his own cross, he went out to the place called the Place of the Skull, called in Aramaic Golgotha. There they crucified him along with two others, one on each side, with Jesus in the middle. Pilate also had a notice written and fastened to the cross, which read, Jesus the Nazarene, the King of the Jews. I'm going to stop here for a second because something just comes to mind. In verse 18, there they crucified him along with two others, one on each side. What's absent here is what's important, I think. Matthew and Luke, I believe, point out that these were robbers or murderers. One of the commentaries I read speculated that these were members of the gang of Barabbas, the one who was released instead of Jesus. So what's absent here is striking, which helps to emphasize the centrality of what's happening to Jesus. And when we see something missing, we often ask ourselves, or should ask ourselves, why is there a difference there? It's not that there's a conflict between the two, it's point of view. Each of us have specific things that we will key in on when we read a book, when we look at a situation, when we watch a movie. If you ever have a doubt about this, sit and watch a movie with your wife. Don't say anything to her or your best friend, whoever it may be if you're not married. And go 5-10 minutes and then stop it and ask and think to yourselves, what did I notice? What stood out to me the most? And think as much as you can, and then ask whoever's with you. And it's an interesting study because you're going to see, because I've seen it with my students, when they read, they always will pick up on certain things that are often different, and they're colored by the background that we have. So there's that. So that's what's happening here with John. John is pinpointing what's important from his point of view. Pilate also had a notice written and fastened to the cross, which read, Jesus the Nazarene, the King of the Jews. Thus many of the Jewish residents of Jerusalem read this notice because the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city. And the notice was written in Aramaic, Latin, and Greek. Those are the three most common languages at that time. So then the chief priests of the Jews said to Pilate, do not write the King of the Jews, but rather, this man said, I am King of the Jews. And then finally in 22 is what I want to focus on. Pilate answered, what I have written, I have written. There's a couple different interpretations for this. Obviously, what it says at the surface level is pretty clear. But one commentator I read stated that this was Pilate. He's essentially just washing his hands of the situation. He's frustrated. That very well may be true. But another commentator I read stated that Jewish law was once a sentence is passed, it can't be changed. This is very similar to the concept of the law of the Medes and the Persians, I think, Medes and the Persians from the Old Testament, in the book of Daniel specifically. Once the king made a law and it was dictated, it was written, it was put into place, it couldn't be changed. I don't know how much that's true, but because that's the only place that I read that specific reference. But either way, it makes sense. But what's most telling is the actuality of what Pilate said. Whether his motive was, I've said what I said, it's law, it's going to remain, or I've said what I've said, I'm done with the situation, leave me alone. Whatever the motive is, let's look at what he actually says. The King of the Jews. Let's go back to his, because Jesus the Nazarene, the King of the Jews. So you had the Nazarene part in there, which would have thrown those studying the Old Testament, looking for where their Messiah is coming. But they would have recognized the importance of being a Nazarene. So there's that. But the King of the Jews is actually correct. Okay, and this is what I'm building towards. The King of the Jews, the Messiah of the Jews, the one who would deliver them. This statement is true. So one of the commentators I read actually said this could be seen as more of a prophetic statement, even though it wasn't intended by the individual. So at the very least, we can call this irony. Because Jesus was King of the Jews. Jesus is King of the Jews. And it's interesting to me. It doesn't boggle my head, misspeak. It boggles my mind sometimes when you start thinking about how all the pieces work together. The religious leaders were not able to crucify. Romans were able to crucify. The religious leaders presented him forward for sedition. Um, you can sort of see Pilate is condemning him based on that belief, because if he's king of the Jews, then that means Caesar's not. So you can kind of see where that's going. But when you start thinking about the individual points of view, and the hard heart that was necessary, the fear that was necessary in Pilate to get him to go against his conscience, there's just a lot of things to mull over as you work through it. And so that's something I would encourage you today, through this time, is just kind of think through, if you were one of the Pharisees, if you were Pilate, if you were Jesus, maybe, that one, uh, putting yourself in his place on the cross, knowing you're innocent. I think that's a healthy way of growing in honor and reverence for Christ, when you realize what he endured, and knowing it was for you and for me that he endured it. I don't think it's blasphemous, because we're not saying we are God, but trying to picture what would we do if it had been us in that situation. So drawing that close distinction there, that clear distinction. So a little bit shorter video today. The text is pretty clear here. If you have any comments or questions, as always, please leave them in the box or the comments below. Hit the thumbs up, share the video if you got some value and you think maybe someone else you know would find this interesting. I appreciate it. This is Michael, teacher turned trucker, and you guys have a great day. God bless.